We've talked a lot in this series about democracy, about being founders, about rewriting rules. But there's been something we haven't fully named yet. Let's be honest with each other. Right now, the federal government, for most people, it's either not working or it's actively working against you. And I get it. When things feel this broken, this hostile, this outrageous, the easiest thing to do, tune out, look away, get somebody else to deal with it. But here's what I've learned talking to folks all across this country and looking across history. This is precisely when we can't look away. Because when the institutions that are supposed to serve all of us are failing most of us, that's exactly when ordinary people have to step in. So today we're asking, what would it take to build a federal government that actually works for everyone? Not just some of the people, some of the time. All the people, all the time. I'm Baratunde Thurston, and this is In the Making. Today, confronting the federal government we have and building the one we need. Ashleigh, hello.
Hello.
Michael, hello. It's good to be back at the table with you.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. So why is now the moment for the big vision exercises when many of us who might want to do that don't actually have formally the political power to implement any of it? And what does this have to do with the 250th awkward birthday party we're in the middle of right now for our lovely, complicated, beautiful, awkward nation?
We're in a moment where you can't help but notice that things are not working well, no matter what your measure is, right? If you were just, the person who manages your household, this would not be what success looks like. Whether you manage an organization or a company, this is not what success looks like. And so we're in a moment where it is so clear, right, that this would not look like success on any measure. The opportunity in that is because it gets to be an activation of so many folks who might ordinarily shut their eyes or sit on the sideline. The other thing, though, that I struggle with, whether it's about the 250th or, where's our project 2025?
That one, yeah. Do you have it?
Oh, I'm not writing that. And let me tell you why. Because we're never at our best when we're responding to someone else's vision, right? I feel like we've almost gotten into a rhythm of, okay, well, you say something. Well, now I'm gonna just write the opposite of what you say. And then you go write the opposite, right? And we're gonna just get ever further apart, just trying to be the opposite. And that actually is not nearly as inspiring as actually coming together to figure out, well, what would be our vision for who the United States becomes, right? Like, what would be possible for all of us? And so I think this timing makes so much sense. It's perfect.
We've been saying for years, government doesn't work. So it's time to sit with it, right? It's like not appreciating your partner, right? We've been not appreciating our partners at the local, county, state, federal levels for a long time. And so you got to sit with that reality right now. And you got to decide, do you want to be in a different relationship right now? And this is the question we all got to ask ourselves. You can be mad about it. You can stomp your feet and want tomorrow to be better. It won't be better until we decide, until we own the fact that we've been neglecting our partner. The government is our partner. We are in a relationship and we've neglected that relationship. So some of us who have the capacity, just like again in a relationship, somebody usually has to have the capacity to get beyond the hurt and the anger and the frustration and say, okay, I may not feel like I'm the one, but today I'm gonna be the one. Those of us who feel that way have to be the one.
Our federal government right now is not by, of, or for the people. And I believe we will get a chance to rebuild. I don't think that is this second, like as the three of us sitting at this table, but I believe it's in this lifetime. It's not like some future distant thing. It's gonna happen, and we gotta be ready. I know a lot of people who just want things to calm down and go back to normal. Why is returning to or restoring some status quo not good enough for this moment?
We can't go back because the nation is fundamentally not working when you look at outcomes. Look at the international rankings. For all of this grandstanding that we do about American exceptionalism, we are not exceptional when you think about outcomes for your people. And that's not acceptable for the amount of money that we spend. And so it's hard to believe that we can find billions per day for war and we can't finance a healthcare system for everyone, or a public education system that produces the best and the brightest consistently en masse. So rebuilding is rebuilding mediocrity. And that is something that this nation needs to get comfortable saying before it can talk about greatness again. So that's why I would say we can't go back. What we had is mediocre if you're looking at, is this nation producing outcomes? And when you have 85 million people struggling to make ends meet, that number is just drastically too big. And you can't tell me all those people are just tragically flawed. So it's a personal responsibility thing. Of course, personal responsibility matters and government responsibility matters as well.
One, I just want to give you credit for low-key citing Tupac. They got money for wars, but can't feed the poor.
There you go.
Two, how do we do it differently? I believe you. I believe going back is not good enough. So how do we move forward and build something better differently?
Well, first it means that we acknowledge that there's some good stuff. There's some good stuff in the Constitution, in the amendments that we have. There's some really rich stuff. So actually, let me pause and say, y'all, we know that when the people wrote the words, they were not including us. We know that. We know that. And I shared that we've been on this journey, generations-long journey, to expand the fullness of all. But some of what we've been missing has been like the rigor that's in the documents, right? And so the last couple of years, we've been trying to hold this question about how. And the first how was, why don't we read the paper that we already have? And the 13th Amendment, after when we're done shorthanding, right? Because we decided, 13th, 14th, 15th, that's the Black people ones, right? That's the post.
The Black amendments.
That's the post Civil War stuff. That was for Black people. When you look closely at it, the 13th Amendment, as it finally says, slavery's not a thing here anymore, it also says, essentially, all means all. It's not just that slavery is bad, but that everyone has to be included. That's the first piece. So when you hear PolicyLink folks talking about all finally has to truly mean all, it's undergirded by the promise that's in the 13th Amendment. The 14th is really what starts to say, and here's the government's obligation to making sure that all means all. So we're required, the government has an affirmative duty to make sure that you have access to safe and affordable housing, right? That your cousin has access to clean water, right? That we all can get from our homes to our good jobs, that we actually have an excellent education that's available to each of us. And so I want to start there because we have to actually know what we've been guaranteed. Failure to deliver, right? But what's been guaranteed first. So then the how means first we have to actually spread the word. Do you know? Girl, go in there and read what it says, right? Right? Here's your pocket constitution to make sure that you can see it. So that first part of the how is making sure that folks are aware. The second is that we then decide that it takes more than just a couple dozen guys like the first time to then do the designing. That this time, if we got 340 million folks here who have experienced the benefits and the consequences of this winners and losers thing, the not all, then we could actually open up an invitation to the 340 million people here to say, do you know, you don't have to compete for who's losing worse. we could actually design systems that deliver on this promise. I think that's a critical part of the all as well. And then there's all the shiny stuff that policy organizations like us do, which is based on those legal promises. How do we shape model policy, right? That can move to Texas, that can move to Ohio, that can move to California, that lives into how you deliver housing for everyone. How we shift those state constitutions so that people living in states get to start feeling like, well, my government cares about me.
I like the invitation to read the fine print and just know what you're promised. Read the job contract, right? Read the prenup. There's a lot of metaphors we could throw at this, but read the words and understand what's been promised. Okay, something's broken, but it raises the bar of what we're fighting for, which is not just less bad, right? Less hurt, less harm, but more universal good. And so I'm inspired hearing that. And now I'm like, okay, I'm going to measure my government very differently now. If that's the bar, not just how much you have relieved of pain, but how much good have you spread?
And this has been a fight that we've avoided because we've always said a little bit is better than nothing. What you clearly hear us making a serious departure, especially for folks who might think we're progressive, which is to say absolutely no. If the money will not produce the outcomes in community, the money should stay in community.
All right, Chairman Mike, Chairman McAfee, outcomes.
Yes.
How do we know, in order to have a government held to a standard of an affirmative duty to deliver general welfare, for example, we got to have a way to measure it. This federal government don't seem like they can measure anything right now that's in our benefit, but we're not limited. We got states, we got localities. So how do we get there? And what do we measure?
Well, we can measure the things that really matter. We can measure the health of our people in this country. Others are doing it for us. And we're one of the sickest nations in the world. It's already measured. Educational outcomes, already measured. Housing outcomes, already measured. So we don't even have to spend money on trying to measure anymore because even if we don't want to do it, someone else has already done it. Peer-reviewed, statistically valid, done. So the real question becomes, will we move the needle? So see, all that other stuff becomes work avoidance, talking about how we're gonna measure. No, it's already being measured. The real question is, do you want to move the needle? That's the thing we avoid. Because see, then that asks the question, will you love the people enough to move the needle? That's the only question we're asking right now. Will you love the people enough to move the needle? That's the question we're putting on the table. And then will you put the resources behind it to move the needle?
Part of what's missing is there's measuring, which I agree. We have a lot of data out there, a lot of reports from universities, from private entities, but maybe a score.
Yes.
Right? Because a score motivates you. You know, it's like, oh, we're losing.
And it would tell you on the front end.
We want to run up the score. So talk to me about this.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say that we've got plenty of data, to Michael's point. We do not hold our legislators accountable when they submit their bills into their legislative sessions at any level. It can just be what they thought of in the shower this morning, right?
Or what their lobbyists thought of in the shower.
Right?
Yeah.
And what we recognize is that there's actually a model for how we might evaluate legislation, right? So when you think about the United States Congress, the Congressional Budget Office, they assign a score, essentially a fiscal score, to what's this, if this bill passes, what will it cost in its implementation? And so what we realized is like, well, we could do that. We could do that with people at the center. So you introduce this bill. Well, let's assess who's going to win, who's going to be harmed, right? Like who's going to be impacted? And you could look at that by age. You could look at that by geography, race, income. And so if we're smart enough, and we've been doing the CBO thing, the Congressional Budget Office thing, for a long time, we decided we ought to build this people score. That's what we call it, the people score, to assess who will be impacted. And the idea is that we finally want our legislators to feel responsible for the impact that their ideas, their laws, their negotiations, the deals in the back have on real people.
These things are not sexy and they're not fancy, but these are the things that until you put them in place, we're never going to win on our agenda. And so these are the things that we're prepared to fight for and to go out on. This is the last frontier of the work. And this is the generational work that has to happen, because charity will never suffice. And what is really beginning to become problematic is that a few billionaires think that they're when they choose to be kind, that their charity can supplant the business of government, and it cannot. And too many of us are falling into this and believe in it. I'm repulsed when citizens have to take their money and feed workers who are unable to work because government is shut down. Think about that for a moment. So I'm paying taxes twice now. You see my point? And we high five and we celebrate that. And yes, it's wonderful to see the beauty of the human spirit to care for each other, but that's not acceptable. And we should also say that, right? And so that's where this governing for all agenda is going, is that it is going to put the right governing standard on the table, and it will ensure that we actually have a citizenry that will demand that standard.
I'm loving it. I'm excited to play a part again with y'all. And I think every moment is an opportunity to practice. And I think with democracy, we can practice it in any configuration of people. It doesn't have to be in a voting booth or in a legislative hall. It can be at a festival / conference / hoedown, whatever we're calling it. Summit, I guess, is you actually have a word for it. I like hoedown, but sure. So that's good, and that's coming up very quickly. I want to cast our vision a little farther out. 10, 20, 30 years from now, when we've been successful in redesigning the federal government. First of all, congratulations. Well done. Proud of you. Proud of us, all of us. What does it look like? What is the experience of this democracy when you've actually put people and all people at the center?
Imagine a government that says it will stop being harmful to people and planet. Just as a baseline, it'll just stop hurting people based on its actions, just as a baseline. And then it'll stand on that baseline and say that I'm going to create an environment where folks can actually really thrive and live into the general welfare, whether it's around health, education, housing, water, you name it, jobs. That's what our government would be doing. Our government would be so bold to look at its data and say, you know what? I am not satisfied with the performance here, and I'm going to fix it because the people deserve that. And just as proactively as it will go into imaginary wars that it didn't need to go into, it will be as proactive about improving outcomes for children and their families in this country. That's what we're talking about. Simple things, but hard to do. And they wouldn't just do it for a few folks. They'll do it for everyone.
Before we think about what the government looks like, I can't see the government yet before seeing the people. And we joke about the importance of, not joke about, I think we realize it, but we have visions of what it looks like. We say that this work is rooted in the 14th Amendment because it is. That's where all the promises are, right? And so we said, well, we'll just imagine if there were 14th Amendment people. You know, you have Second Amendment people and First Amendment people, and you immediately know, oh, that's the gun people. Oh, that's the civil liberties folks or the free speech folks. And for us, we're imagining, like, what if there were 14th Amendment people all around the United States, tattoos and all, right? That are like, oh, no, this government has to work for everyone. Not just this government, all of our institutions ought to be in service of everyone. And so we're going to spend the next several years cultivating those folks so that in 10 years, it's what Michael said, that the government now knows they must respond to that mandate. So they begin with a result. Can you imagine a U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development that's just like, oh, I'm responsible for providing housing for all the people? That, to me, feels possible in 10 years. If we get the 14th Amendment people right, then the agencies feel like they must deliver for them. And so then when you get to 20 and 30 years out, you actually see that, right? So 20 years out, it's like, oh, wait a minute, we went from 0 states, right, to 17 states. What? Right? So that by the time we get to the 30-year mark, these things are normalized, right? That we've redesigned the regulations of our agencies so that they must do that.
This is a big job. It requires literally all, and from what I'm hearing here. And one of the words that is very popular to use these days is unprecedented. We've never seen this happening before. And this effort, some might hear it as something unprecedented. Is that how you see it?
No, I don't. I mean, it hurts bad. And I think for some, it feels it's outsized for our lifetime, for many of us. When I think about women's suffrage, that was another big moment with a convening that only had 300 people, as it turns out, right? It wasn't a mass rally or a huge convention. There were 300 people there, women who believed in more, right? And allies. I think I shared, Frederick Douglass was there. Sojourner Truth was there. Now, she was also a woman, but that was kind of her point. Ain't I a woman too, right? And they wrote based on, we had a Declaration of Independence at that Seneca Falls convention, 300 people only. They wrote a declaration of sentiments. This was pulling a thread, like, wait a minute, we can't stand for this anymore. There's something more and better for not just us as women, but for the nation, acknowledging us. When I think about the environmental justice movement in 1991, it was Black folks and Indigenous folks and Latino folks, white folks coming together.
Hippie white kid.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, there's gotta be more. Student movements, right? We talked about Port Huron. They came together and wrote an artifact, the Port Huron Statement. Like, this is what we all ought to have, right? And so my takeaway from the learning journey of each one of those experiences was, first, there had to be a moment of like, wait a minute, this is insufficient. We can do better than this, and be courageous enough to say it out loud. The second was like, and then who do we need to bring together to help define, design something more and different? And in many of those instances, they also were like, and we ought to write it down for our posterity, right? That's been a part of this nation's history, and we keep doing it. And so this moment feels big, it feels heavy, but I would offer that it's in the moments that we feel most failed, most excluded, most hurt, and begrieved, as Lenny Williams would say, that we make the most progress. It's where we dig down deep, find the courage, tap into the bigger vision, the bigger promise to deliver more.
And it's our turn.
It's our turn.
Let's step up. There is a big vision that moves in the opposite direction. It is not about all. It is very much about some. And a small sum it is. It is not about interdependence. It is about a radical independence and exploitation. And we're living in the partial realization of that vision right now. What are your thoughts, Michael, on how this big vision for all can meet and exceed this smaller vision for some?
To Ashleigh's point earlier, the work that we're doing is the blessing of what our ancestors have given us. That's the work that we're trying to fulfill. I don't need to worry about what the others are doing. And I wish that most people would stop worrying about them, because what I would say there is, for all the people that are worrying, especially when we think about the funding environment that we sit in right now, for all the funders who worry about what they're doing, they've yet to fund the alternative. So you see, you keep complaining and saying, ain't it awful, and you ain't never made your mind up what you're gonna do to replace it. So we've had several years of this coming. Where's the response? So that's learned helplessness at its best right now. And we're trying to break out of that. So we just need to keep on living. We need to keep on living. We need to try to figure out how to keep joy in our heart and most importantly, not to become the thing that we're working against, which is why we're not working against anything. Because when you work against something, you end up becoming it. You become hateful, your heart gets closed. I don't see their humanity anymore. And when I don't see their humanity anymore, I'm no longer in an all consciousness. And so for me, in my own personal journey, in my own personal walk, I have to leave them alone for my own salvation, right? And this work is big enough to bring to life in and of itself. And this does bring me joy. And to be able to do this work with you and Ashleigh and a community of other folks, that's the best gift you could ever have. So while the pain that they are exacting, I feel every day in community and my heart hurts, I've never been more hopeful for what we could do. I've never been more hopeful when I look at young people and see that they're done with this. We're gonna look back on this moment and realize that they are losing in the courts. They are losing in community. They are losing. Hate feeds on itself and it turns inward and it confounds their own reasoning. And love will still conquer all. I do believe that, even in the darkest of times. So that's what I'm hopeful about, that the indomitable capacity of love to overcome this moment of darkness is going to see us through.
Love conquers all, for all,
For all.
with all.
That's right.
Oh, y'all, come on, come on. We in church now. So here's where we land. The federal government is failing most of us right now. And as I said at the top, I would get why you would want to turn out. Cynicism has its own rationality, it's self-protective. But when we check out, we hand over the reins to people who want government to just enrich themselves and fail everyone else, to double down on their small lot. Rebuilding and redesigning isn't about waiting for the right president or the right balance in Congress or the right moment. It's about having a vision ready even before the window opens. That's probably the hardest part. And when that window opens, we might just have months, not years, to act. So being in the making, as this series is titled, it's hard. It's really, really hard. And it's a lot easier to critique what exists than to build what could come next. Criticism comes with receipts. You can point at what's broken, name the harm, call out the failure, and you'll be right to do all of that. And building means you're also standing in the mess. You're in the middle. You're holding the grief of what is and the hope of what could be at the same time. And that's some heavy lifting, right? To be the ones planting oak trees whose shade is never available for you to even sit under while there's a fire in the forest, right? That's complicated. And here's the wild part. We're not starting from scratch. We have tools that have been sitting in plain sight, waiting for us to pick them up, waiting for us to use them. Sometimes those tools come in the form of beautiful words read with new clarity, in the form of the Constitution. And not in the dusty museum civics way that we've been taught. No, we're talking about an enlivened Constitution, of infused, the 14th Amendment. That could be the key to building a nation that actually serves all of us. So I encourage, implore, and invite you to rest up, because we're gonna need our full selves for this. To build the democracy that has never been, but could always be. That's ours to create together. I'm Baratunde Thurston, this is In the Making, and we will see you next time.